So I began my adventure with a company that was called Opscode at the time, and that was 2010. I was pretty excited to get started. And it continues to be a really fun adventure. One of the things that I got to help out with was rewriting the implementation of the Chef server from its original Ruby code base and put that into Erlang, along with some colleagues I see that we worked on that together. Seeing the performance and reliability impacts that had was super fun. Really satisfying work. And at the beginning of 2014, I was asked to lead a team to turn a very early prototype of what is now delivery into a product. And it became clear rather quickly that developing a new product is really different than working on optimizations to enhance an established product, which was the case with Chef and the Chef server. With Chef, our focus was how do we make it fast, how do we make it reliable, and how do we make it maintainable. We spent a lot of effort making sure that we could reduce what we were thinking of as technical debt whenever we could. We didn't worry about building the wrong thing so much because we had the Chef server and we knew what it needed to do. Click. There we go. And we didn't need to spend a lot of time talking to customers. But there we go. Look, when you're building a new product, one of your single biggest risks is building the wrong thing. And so to help mitigate that risk with delivery, we've been spending a lot of time worrying about, are we building the wrong thing? And spending time talking to a lot of customers, showing them where we're at, having conversations to get feedback. And that's been great, and just a really different experience. So for me, this journey has been about learning what does it take to do engineering within the context of new product development, and both from doing the engineering and leading a team doing that engineering. So like the design, it's really tempting. With Chef, it's like we really wanted to get it right. And here, what's really much more important is that we get something that we can get feedback on, and that we can design it in a way that we won't hate ourselves when we go to replace it later, because we almost certainly will do that for parts of it, right? Cool. So really what you probably want to hear about is delivery. So for those of you who were here in the morning, you got a preview of what delivery is all about. Delivery is a solution for continuous delivery of infrastructure and applications, and it's built on top of Chef. Over the past 3 years at Chef, we've worked closely with a number of different customers to help them build continuous delivery pipelines. And from that experience, we've identified some common patterns that allow successful software companies to deliver software collaboratively, at high velocity, and importantly, safely. And so we've distilled those patterns into Chef delivery. That's the whole idea. The workflow starts on a developer's workstation. They create a change, do some local testing, and then submit it to the system where verification tests run, and make sure that the change is worth reviewing. We have a review part of the workflow, and as well as a sort of separate notion of approval. And if you approve a change, then we build a potentially releasable artifact and deploy that into an acceptance environment where more automated testing can happen. And then that's where the second human gate lives, where someone can hold the ship it button and decide whether that change should go all the way out or not. One of the things that makes delivery unique is that the system provides a shared delivery pipeline that works across projects and teams. So here's an illustration of that shared pipeline. And what that means is that the system is able to help you coordinate how change flows when you have multiple projects in play. Each project has its own acceptance pipeline, but everything comes together in the delivery pipeline. And in the demo that I'll do for you, we'll get a little bit of a sense of how that works. Having everything flow this way makes the system safer because it helps enforce one change at a time. So that when something breaks, because you know that something will break, right? If you have a single change associated with that breakage, it's that much easier to understand and debug. And it's also that much easier to find the right people so that you have the right conversation about how to go about fixing it. And so part of what we're trying to do with the workflow is that social aspect, right? It's about how do we have a system that encourages the right behaviors, that encourages the right kinds of conversations to make for a system that will be stable as it grows and as you have more teams interacting with it. I guess last thing here, there's also sort of a psychology of it too, right? Like, especially in a world of microservices, say, where you have lots and lots of independent services, like, yes, you want them to be independent and not to have to sort of worry about each other, but there is something useful in the psychology of remembering that when you ship a change, you're shipping a change for the whole system. What matters is the system. Yes, your service matters, but like at the end of the day, the thing that is providing value to your customers, it's the whole system. And so, a shared pipeline. Another place where we've taken an approach that's a bit different from some other solutions in the space is that in delivery, there's a unified pipeline shape. What do I mean by that? I mean that in delivery, the pipeline has a fixed set of stages, and each of those stages has a fixed set of phases that comprise the stage. And for those of you that saw in the morning, you got some sense of what those are. Here's a diagram showing you the full set as it currently is in the product of the stages and phases. Now, the point isn't for us to be inflexible, right? But it's to change the conversation. So if we find something, some activity that doesn't have a natural place here, what we want to do is have that conversation. Where would that activity belong in a high velocity and stable workflow? Let's find that spot and put it there, and then we can all benefit from that modification or enhancement of the workflow. Okay, so I'm going to switch over and do some demo for you, and we'll work with the product a bit. I've got two projects for you that we're going to be working with for this demo. They're both based on a cookbook. They're each a cookbook. The one on the left, MOTD, Message of the Day, is a very simple cookbook that allows you to customize the message that a user will see when you log into the box. On the right is Simple Web, and that deploys an Apache web server and an index HTML, and I'm showing you sort of what it looks like. And on the boxes that are running Simple Web, I've added the MOTD cookbook into the run list so we can have a little bit of interaction to play with. I've prepared a very simple infrastructure for us to work with. All of the nodes are running in EC2. I have a node for an acceptance environment for Simple Web. Similarly, a node for MOTD. And then in each of the environments, of union, rehearsal, and delivered, I have a single node just running simple web. But again, the simple web nodes have in their run list the MOTD cookbook. If it makes it more concrete, I've given you really awesome, those are actually computers, those boxes diagrams. And I put more computers in delivered because that's like, live and maybe you'd need more computers. But for the demo, just so it's clear, there's really only one computer. OK, overview. Just so hopefully as I'm in my demo madness, we don't totally get lost. I'm going to make a change to the message of the day cookbook. And so that flow is going to be similar to what you saw with this morning, shipping the website. We'll be able to see it in acceptance, and then we can hit deliver and ship that out. We'll see how union is affected. So we're making a change to one pipeline, and we'll see how it impacts a service that is not that pipeline, which is simple web. And then to kind of tie that interaction story together, we'll make a change to simple web and kind of see what happens in simple web's acceptance environment after I've shipped a change to message of the day. Cool. Now it's time to switch to the laptop. So just to give you the tour, here's my browser window. It might be a little small to see the address bar, but in the address bar, you can tell what environment I'm hitting. So here is the acceptance environment for simple web. In the next tab, I have the union environment, rehearsal, and delivered. And I've got this button. I did all of this web programming, well, pretty much myself. I had a little help. When I press this button, it will display just via symlink in the Apache web server config, the etc MOTD file that the MOTD cookbook is rendering. So that allows us to kind of tie these two things together. And you can see it says, hello, ChefConf. Cool. All right. And then lastly, just to kind of, again, tie together the tour, if we're just looking at, say, the acceptance environment of MOTD, if I SSH into that box, I get that message, hello, ChefConf. Great. OK. So I've prepared a change. We're going to change the message of the day. It's going to be really great. I tried to get Unikitty to work, but I didn't have luck, so we're going to go with some ASCII art. And I have a commit prepared on a feature branch in my checkout of MOTD. And I've bumped the version and commenting some stuff out and enabling a template where I've prepared my new message of the day. So let's propose that to the system. Use the delivery command line tool. I run delivery review. That's going to create the change and open my browser to it and start us off on our workflow. So there's the change. We start off in the verify stage. Remember, verify is all about, is this change good enough to waste the time of a human on? In verify, we run unit tests, linting, and syntax. And let me tell you a little bit more detail about what's going on there. So in delivery, a given project has a .delivery directory and a config file. Currently, that's in JSON. And that's where you can specify what build cookbook you want to use. You can either use an embedded build cookbook, where that would be a local path within the repo itself, or you can reference one on any Git server, or you can reference one that's somewhere else within the delivery server that you're using, which is what I'm doing here. And as you can see here, this is the important thing to see, I am using Delivery Truck, which is our reusable build cookbook for building and testing cookbooks. Hi, Tom. He wrote it. OK. And I'm going to jump into Delivery Truck. So what does a build cookbook look like? A build cookbook is a chef cookbook. It has a recipe for each phase in the workflow, and then those phases and those phase recipes are just chef. So if we look at what's happening, typing and talking, within that unit recipe to run the unit tests, it's an execute resource. We call rspec, so we're running chef spec tests if you have them in your cookbook. With lint, we're running food critic, and there's some mechanisms within the cookbook where you can add some data into your config file so that you can customize the food critic rules. And for syntax, we're running knife cookbook test. Right? And so you can see how easy it would be to customize what happens in your build by writing a little bit of chef. Okay. So our change passed verify. Yay. We can do a little review. You might see a few glitches here in the UI. We're still working through some of our eventing stuff to get that all tied together the way we want. It got a ton better last week, which was really fun to see. So I've got a version change. I've got that change. I'm just going to go ahead and approve it. I don't get any music this time. It's not nearly as fun. No GIFs. Okay, so just to explain the workflow, I've hit approve. So delivery has now merged my change to the master branch, which is the target branch for this pipeline. It's going to then rerun the same tests that we ran in verify, the unit, lint, and syntax. We have two additional phases that run in build, security and quality. And then it's going to publish the artifact and provision and acceptance environment if we needed one. So here we're kind of using a persistent infrastructure model, but this can work with infrastructure that you provision on demand. Deploy into that environment, run some more tests, and then stop there, right? And that's where we'll get to either hit the deliver button or not based on what we see in acceptance. Okay, so while that's running, what I haven't shown you that might be interesting to see is how do you get a project into delivery? So I'm going to show you what it looks like to import a cookbook that's currently in Chef's cookbook repo on GitHub, the HTTPD cookbook. So I've just cloned it from GitHub. And the command I'm going to use is delivery init. And this is going to do a whole bunch of things for me. So, yeah. So we should go take a look here for a second. So you can see I have some projects listed. And in my collection of projects, what you need to observe is there is no HTTPD. Yeah? Yeah. OK. So delivery init is going to talk to delivery over its HTTP API. It's going to create the project. It's then going to do a push to a Git repo within delivery's world, so the code will be imported. It'll create a pipeline defaulting to the master branch as the target branch. It'll then locally create a feature branch and render a default config file. It'll detect that it's a cookbook, make a commit, and then push a review. So what should happen, if it works, is that my browser will open up. So I've got the pipeline, and I'm sitting on a change that is the change to the repo that adds the .delivery config file, right? And just so you see it in this view, we see that the project is now there. Cool. The other thing I should show you is that you can use as I talked about a little bit, you can use a build cookbook and the delivery command line tool locally. So you can run a phase job in the same way that delivery is going to run it within the build nodes that it's controlling. You can run it on your systems, either locally on your laptop, in a VM, or this is one way that you could integrate the delivery workflow into your existing kit. So here, I'll run the unit phase job just locally on my Mac. So what's going to happen is the command line tool is going to fetch the delivery truck cookbook from the source that I specified. And then it'll sort of do a local clone of the project into a temporary working directory, do the hypothetical merge, and then call chef to run the tests. So that's pretty fun. All right, so back to our change. Remember we were like changing the message of the day? Yeah? Yeah. So it's in acceptance. So here's what it used to look like. And that's what it looks like now. So we succeeded in updating the... Looks kind of okay. Yeah? I kind of like ASCII art, okay? I don't know, I'm into it. That was like one of my main contributions to Chef Engineering. I think all of our projects have, I don't know if you've seen it, but we have, anyway. It's great. Okay, so that's in acceptance. That's cool. What else am I trying to show you? Cool. Just to kind of clarify where we're at, it's not, if I were to look in Union, for example, right, and I'll just reload just to be super clear, but like it's not in Union, which is what we expect because we haven't hit the deliver button. So let's do that. Okay. Bing. All right, so that's on its way. Cool, and so here's where I get to flip back to the deck if we can. And I'll tell you a story while we're waiting for that to ship. So what's going to happen, right? It's going into Union, and then if that deploy succeeds... oh, wait, no. Yeah. If that deploy succeeds, it'll go into rehearsal and then delivered, and it will be all the way through. This just happened. So this morning we shipped the website for you in the morning, and since then we've actually shipped the website 4 other times. And Chris Weber, who is the one who did the work to kind of set up that pipeline, had something to ship, and he logged in over the VPN on his phone and found Bridget, a member of the community, and was like, hey, would you like to push the button? And she said, yeah, that sounds like fun. And so she shipped the website from Chris Weber's phone, which I thought was pretty cool. So that was fun. I just thought I'd share it. Like, that's cool, right? Thanks, Bridget. So I have a couple other stories from kind of our journey building this thing, right? Like, it's been sort of an adventure. In August of last year, Alex Etier, who runs product at Chef, came to and began working really closely with me and with the team building delivery. And one of the things that he helped me to see was that our Kanban board, where we were visualizing our engineering work, was rather focused on shipping tasks. And that meant it was difficult for us to have a clear conversation about priority, about prioritizing work in a way that would really optimize for customer outcomes. It also meant that as a team, we struggled to have a regular cadence of the things that we were demoing. Like, we were completing a lot of tasks. It's not like we weren't doing work and getting things done, but because those tasks didn't necessarily relate to something that a user could see, it made it hard to demo. identifying sufficiently small slices of a feature that still have user value is super hard, right? Like it really is hard to find that right balance. If you get it too big, then then you no longer have small batch size work, and like that's no good. And then it's also really easy to fall off the other end, where in the end you just have a task. You have something that when you deliver it is not really something you can show. So it's hard, and you know, like maybe you can't do it 100% of the time. We put a lot of effort into talking about what we wanted that to mean for us. And OK, I think that's perfect. And reorganized our board, and you know that was really helpful for us. Like over the course of a couple weeks, our cadence for regularly having user-facing features to demo went way up. So that was great. OK, I'm going to switch back to the deck, to the laptop, please. We'll wrap up some demo. Great, it's there. So as you can see, our change went all the way out. And so here's union. And I'm probably going to have to refresh because I've got some browser cache going on. And we'll skip rehearsal just in the interest of time. And here's delivered. And so that went all the way out. Cool. Woo! Yay! It is kind of nice when these live demos actually work. OK, I got to keep moving, though, because we've got 10 minutes. So here's the thing, though, right? The acceptance environment for our simple web app, if I load it here, it's actually, even if I refresh it, it's still the old version. And the question is, now that we've shipped MOTD and it went all the way out, let's say now we're going to go and do some development on simple web, right? So I'm going to go grab that. Here's simple web. And rather than starting from a fresh change, I've already prepared one, cooking show style. So it's past verify. I'm going to start the review. I'm going to approve it because I want to just get that going. Thank you. And so that's on its way into acceptance. And the question is, like, what you would like to have happen is when you ship a change on a project that's using something else and that something else has shipped out, you'd like to test it in its acceptance environment with that latest version, right? So as soon as something in our delivery pipeline hits union, every other acceptance environment should test against that version, because you'd like to know as early as possible that you're not compatible. And so what I'm hoping to show you with this part of the demo is that when we get to the acceptance environment, we'll see that delivery will have updated the MOTD for us, and that we'll be testing with the latest MOTD. Spoiler alert, the website is still totally going to work. OK, so let's flip back to the deck. I'll tell you another story, and then we'll flip back to this, and then I'll tell you one last story, and then we'll be done. And we might have a time for a question or two. So if we're back on the deck, so last October, the team hit a really important milestone, and we were able to teach delivery how to deploy itself. So getting to this self-hosting inception point took a ton of effort. It took way longer than we thought or than we wanted, but it was still really important to do. Partly because if you're building a continuous delivery tool and you're not continuously delivering it, then you're kind of living a lie, and we didn't want to live a lie. So the two takeaways there that were just really fun, right? So one, obviously, when you get to really every day use your own software that you're writing, like super good. That's really fun. It feels great. You see the improvements. It's really motivating. It helps you uncover the pain that a user might have, all of those things. And then the other thing that, I mean, it's not like we were surprised because we sort of believed in the vision, but it was great to see the acceleration in terms of our team's velocity once we had a continuous delivery pipeline in place for our system. Like, it works. OK, once more, back to the laptop. So it's in acceptance. So the punchline here is that when I reload here, delivery has succeeded in doing the thing that we wanted to, and it updated the pinnings for the MOTD cookbook that shipped into the acceptance environment as part of provisioning that acceptance environment when we were shipping that change into Simple Web. And so that's the system helping us coordinate changes that are flowing across multiple projects where there may be interdependencies. And that's, that in order to get to a stable pipeline that scales with numbers of projects, that's a really critical piece. And so it's fun to be able to show that to you. OK, I've got one more story to share back on the deck. Perfect. So the very first, very early prototype of delivery was built alongside GE Capital. And we built it with them with the idea that if the prototype succeeded, we would turn it into a product. Now, first of all, the thing happened with that prototype that happens with prototypes, which was that after just a little bit, it was being used in production. And then after that, my team was formed to turn delivery into a product. OK, so fast forward, and we were in kind of the final weeks of being in a position where we could give GE a build that would get them onto the product that we had been sort of self-hosting and using, and off of the prototype, which was very prototypey. So it was a Thursday. We believed we had checked off every single one of their must-have issues. Sure, there were some other things that we needed to do next, but we had the must-haves. We give them the build. On Friday, they call and are saying, hey, guys, so we're having some trouble doing LDAP integration. It doesn't seem to be present at all. And we're like, yeah, that wasn't on our list. But the thing was, instead of having an argument, or instead of getting frustrated about how we failed on that communication, I mean, which would be good things to talk about too, we were able to have a different sort of conversation. So we were able to say, hey, it's super clear what the next most valuable thing we could add to delivery is for you, and so how about we do that? Now, because we had organized our work in a way where we were limiting work in progress, WIP, we were able to begin work on that the very next week. And for the team, it was, I was really proud of the team that was kind of low drama. Sure, we had some stories queued up that we would have started otherwise, but we talked about what the customer needed, and it was clear what we needed to do, and it wasn't a big deal. That Friday, then, we had, for our internal demo, we had working integration kind of in a simple form. And by the following Friday, we had given them a build that had working LDAP, which felt super good. So that was one of those moments, and I'm going to use the word, but that was one of those moments where I felt like I understood what Agile is about, right? And I guess my takeaway from that experience was a sense of what it feels like, and I think it's like hitting a baseball a little bit. It's hard, and you can't do it every time, right? But it can be motivating once you get that feeling of connecting with the ball. It becomes something that you can strive to do again, and you can get better at. And so, yeah, so that was that thing. I've got to thank the team. There's a ton of folks that have, over a number of months, put in a ton of effort and creativity and willingness to experiment with process and be flexible and talk to customers and all sorts of things. And so thank you to them. I'm done. Do I have time for questions? Or yeah? OK.
Thanks very much, Seth. So could you just summarize again where the manual clicks are needed to advance along the workflow?
Absolutely. So the question was, what are the manual gates in the workflow of the delivery pipeline? And there are two gates. One of them is an approval gate, which moves a code from the verify stage and like causes, in the current system, it causes the merge to happen. Whether that happens that way with some future integrations, we could debate it. But so it's an approval phase. And then the last one is the deliver button. And so that's the thing that moves from an acceptance environment all the way out into delivered, which is the live environment.